Well, welcome back. The holidays are over, and I'm kind of glad in a way. I want to get back to a normal routine. And I hope everybody had a great Christmas, and I hope everybody has a even greater New Year, okay? All right, so far, here's what's been going on. I told you before we went on break for the holidays that all the capacitors have been changed, and now all of the resistors have been changed. Now, here's what I found bad, the ones that were bad. Take a look at these babies here now. They are really mangy looking. Now, believe it or not, every one of these read good. They all read good, but I didn't like them, so they were coming out. Well, I was looking at here, or what you're looking at now, that was 7 problems waiting to happen. Well, it's not going to happen anymore, okay? They are good to go. So we are now down to replacing, we're going to replace this selenium rectifier with a 1N. It's a 1N4007 diode, and the way we're going to do that, I've already disconnected this resistor from this side, and I have disconnected this wire from the transformer and tinned it already. I stripped it back and tinned it from this side. Now what we're going to do, it's kind of cool. I learned this actually from Rick McWhorter. I saw him use various, rather than remove various components out of a chassis, he used them as mounting points for terminal boards. I thought that was a good idea. In particular, on electrolytic cans, you know, he would cut the end of it off on the bottom, the pointed end that would come through, and then he would he'd glue it back on with glue, and that would insulate that tip he cut off from the rest of the can. And which he wanted, you know, he didn't want that ground there, so he would establish a ground underneath, and then he would take a terminal board and solder it to the tip that was no longer, you know, other than being glued to the old electrolytic can, it was just no longer physically, you know, one piece. Okay, I thought that was cool, and I think I saw him even do it one time with a selenium rectifier. So what we're going to do, it's kind of neat, I think. We are going to take this tab right here. I'm going to bend it out horizontal so it's in this position, okay? Like that. I'm just going to bend it around like that. And then we are going to solder this little baby right here. It was a longer terminal board. I cut it down with my rotary tool and a cutter. We're going to solder that onto that bent tab. And then we're going to mount our diode onto it, and this resistor, and that wire from the transformer right there. Okay, piece of cake on this. You're gonna like this. This is really great, and the best part about it is, you know, this may be good for all I know, but I'm not taking a chance. You know, I don't want to drag this thing all out again, have to go through all this crap. But we can bend it down out of our way if we need to. We can bend it back this way if we want, or we can just leave it straight up and down. We'll see how it goes. Now what I might do, there is a hole in this tab right here, and there is a hole right here. I may run a wire around and around, you know, strip back a piece of solid hookup wire and run it around a couple of times and solder it that way. I'm not sure I just want to solder it, you know, face to face. I'm not sure I don't know if that'll be strong enough and hold over a period of time. I just run a couple of loops of wire through there and solder it that way. At least that's what I'm thinking about right now. But before we do that, I want to show you all something. Before we went on break, I told you I had ordered a pair of precision cutters, diagonal cutters that I would be using to start cutting out my resistors. They're skinnier, easier to get down in, stuff like that. So I went online and went to eBay, of course, and I found this pair right here for, I think it was, with shipping, it came out to like $2 and some change. I said, well, that ought to last about an hour and a half, you know. But for $2, what the heck, you know. I figured I'd give it a try. Well, it came in, you know, a couple of days ago. Well, I'll tell you what, they are some really, really precision cutters. Check that out. Nice and tight all the way. I'm impressed with that. And they came from Shenzhen, Guangdong, China, of course. But it says use safety glasses printed on this side. It says use safety glasses. Let's see if I can zoom in here. Let me lay this right here. I want you to see this. This is really cool. Where are we? You see, it says use safety glasses. Now let's flip it around to the other side, and let me see, I want to get this right here. What do you see on the bottom line there? Can you believe that? Made in USA. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. Even the wife had a giggle out of that one. Well, let's look at the box that came in and see what that has to say. Made by the Xuron Corporation in Saco, Maine. You even have a telephone number and everything. Would somebody please explain this to me? I don't get it. You know, I mean, how can they ship something like this? What, did the company in Maine ship this thing to China, and then China turn around and ship it to me all for $2? You know, you can't make this stuff up, people. You just cannot make this stuff up nowadays. All right, let's move on to getting this circuit board mounted to our selenium rectifier. Well, that turned out a lot better than I thought. Nice and solid. I've got a little bit of, I'll tell you what, I need to get my pencil now. I know what I'm doing. I managed to get one coil of the solid hookup wire down, wrapped around once, soldered in place. So that kind of helps it with stability. Now all we have to do, like I said, is I'm going to take this resistor and I'm going to solder it to that hole there. I'm going to take this transformer wire and we're going to solder it through that hole right there like that. And then we're going to take our little diode and we're going to solder that across the two terminals on the top. Okay. Now let me show you a little something on the schematic about that. What we have here again is a polarity symbol that's opposite from what the actual diode is. The anode is supposed to be positive, not the cathode. But they have the cathode as. That's just the way they did it in the old days. So when you run into this type of situation, pretty much ignore that positive symbol or negative, whatever it is. It doesn't match up with the actual polarity of the diode. Install it into the circuit like you see it here, without the symbol. Just like that. Well, there it is, folks, all put back together, and you'll notice that the cathode end of the diode is to the transformer wire. All right, just like on the drawing. If I can find it here, the cathode end of the diode, come on, focus, baby, there we go, the cathode end of the diode is to the transformer. Okay. All right, I think what I'm going to do now, I've been at this all morning, I'm kind of ready for a cup of coffee, I think. What I'm going to do is take some of this here navel jelly now, and I'm going to put it around this top of this this clamshell on this power transformer here. I'm going to let it set for a while I go in and have some coffee, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to clean it all off real nice, and then I'm going to give it a good coat of paint. I don't want any further rust on that. And that will only leave us, as far as I can tell, with one thing left, actually two things left to do, and I'll tell you about those when I get back. I would like to finish up with this amplifier today. So the next video we have, we can move on to the tour mat. So this video is going to be a little longer. All right, we are back from our little coffee break. I'm happy. I put that old navel jelly on there, and as you can see, it cleaned that up real good during the time it was going, because it was just a light coating of rust. Next thing we have to do is we have to drill out this socket right here. Remember, this was the socket that was spring mounted. See that dark line all the way around there? That was foam rubber that was put between the mounting bracket and the chassis to keep from causing microphonics in the tube. Microphonics being vibrations in the tube caused by, or actually electrical changes being made inside the tube caused by mechanical vibrations of the chassis when the music is playing. You know, boom, 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 it may cause the tube to shake. They call that microphonics. You know, you tap a tube with your finger, you can generate microphonics. Fancy name for just static. Anyway, I got to do two of them. I got to do this one, and I have to do this one. So it's a matter of drilling out these rivets here, and I can't get down there with my motor tool to grind that off. I don't think. I'm going to try, but I don't think I can do that. If I could grind it off, it'd be a whole lot easier than drilling it out. Let me see here. You can see the problem I'm having here. Not much room, and I don't want to tear up anything else. But I'll see what I can do. If I go real slow, this is the rotary drill I have, the rotary, the Dremel type tool. The rotary tool it has a variable speed, so I might be able to go nice and easy and slow and get that done. Let's see what I can do with this one first. Well, as expected, I couldn't do it with the moto tool. I had to use the drill. I just drilled out the rivets, and right now I've got alcohol, and I'm cleaning away that old foam, the old dried up foam rubber. It's doing a good job of removing it. It'll be out of there in just a few seconds. Then we can remount the whole thing with the rubber washers I bought. Alright, we have one already in there. I don't have it tightened down yet, but I'm going to show you how we're doing this. So this will be cushioned. This socket will be cushioned from the chassis to prevent those microphonics. Here's how we're doing it. The screw goes up through the chassis from the bottom up, okay? It comes up through the chassis, and then there's a then on the other side of the chassis is a rubber washer. And then the socket goes here, goes on next with another rubber washer on the other side of that socket. Then I have a flat washer. These are all number 6s. Then I have a star lock washer and a nut. So the socket fits between these two rubber mounts, okay? Cushions it real well. Now just tighten it down. Now you don't have to gorilla tighten this thing. You just get it down to where she's nice and snug, and she won't just bounce around a lot when the heavy bass sounds come banging out of those speakers. Alright, she's done. She's in. Now let's see what kind of spring action I get. I don't need a whole lot. I just need to have some. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Get down in there. Lots of good spring action. Should absorb any vibrations. The original was pretty springy, though. It was pretty springy, but this one's pretty darn good, though. I'm kind of happy with that. I don't know if you can see that thing moving or not, but it is definitely springy. Alright, the other one will be done exactly the same way. I decided to put a little bit more navel jelly on the side of this transformer. I had quite a bit of rust on there, but I think that was from the flood more than anything else. So we'll let it sit there for about maybe 30-40 minutes, and then I'll wipe it down. We'll go ahead and see if we can't get this thing painted on the bottom today. And then we'll go ahead and call this bottom completely done, I hope. I hope it's completely done. Meanwhile, let's take a look at our cabinet. Those of you who followed the videos, you'll remember that in our last video, this thing here, once I got it in, I was unable to slide the slider in underneath there because it was hitting on this nut and this screw right here. It was in the way. Something I had overlooked, and I told you that we would fix it. Well, by golly, we're going to fix it. First thing I did was remove the flat washer and the lock washer that was underneath it, like you see here. I tightened it on down, then I whacked off the screw with my motor tool and a cutting wheel. Unfortunately, that still did not give me enough clearance. It still kept hitting. It just kept hitting. I couldn't, once I got the bottom in there and got it screwed down, that thing kept hitting there anyway. And I said, oh man, what now? Well, the only, if we can't lower this any lower, then that means we have to raise this to make the clearance. If you can't do one, think opposite, go up the other one. Okay, how do we do that? We didn't need to raise it too much. I mean, I only needed about 1/4 of an inch or less, just enough to, probably about less than 1/4 of an inch actually. And I came up with the idea of taking one of these rubber legs that you'll remember the last couple of years at Hamvention, I got a whole bag of these rubber legs, all different sizes, shapes, thicknesses, and everything. Well, in the bag, I just grabbed them, indiscriminately in that place we went to, Mendelssohn's. They were only a penny a piece, 2 cents a piece, whatever. I went ahead and found 3 of these, the perfect fit. And I took these and I mounted them in these holes that Seeburg was kind enough to provide. I put one there, I put one there, and I put one there. Got 3 legs. Well, that got this thing high enough up off the cabinet to where this thing would slide in perfectly. Cleared the thing amazingly. Just completely cleared the bolt, this metal plate, and the problem was solved. That's right, it was not solved because the weight of the selectomatic mechanism is very heavy, and over time the rubber legs, these little rubber legs would have squished all the way down, would have flattened down and squished down to where we had the same problem again. It would have been too close to the cabinet. So what do we do now? Well, it fit good to begin with, and it looked good, but it wasn't going to work in the long run. Well, what I did was I took a piece of masonite and I cut it 1.5 inches wide and cemented it between these legs. And I put it between the adjustment holes. This thing here, you can adjust this thing in and out. I didn't want this thing to interfere with those adjustment holes. So that's all there was to it. Now, even though the weight of the selectomatic will press down these legs, it'll only allow it to go down until it hits that masonite. And that's not very, you see, those legs will only go down about that far before it hits the masonite, okay? So let's get this baby on there, and I'll show you how she fits now. Alright, she's bolted in. The curved end, not the straight end, but the curved end goes in first. There it is. We always fix it. We always fix it. It may take time, but we always fix it. You just have to have confidence in yourself. You can do it. There's probably 10 other ways that could have been done. I just only know the way I did it. Alright, whatever we did here, of course, we have to do here. So we'll get that done, and we'll get them both mounted in there and ready to go for when the time comes. 2 more things off the table out in the garage that we have been piling up, waiting to go back on the cabinet. Now that the electrical stuff is all done and the sockets are all in there the way they're supposed to be, those springy sockets, it's time to go ahead and touch this up with a little bit of spray paint before it rusts again. And I've just got it sitting on my bench here. I took some cardboard and, you know, bent it like that, taped it in place on all 4 sides. Use a couple of washcloths to cover up the rest of it. If a little bit gets down around the wiring or something, it doesn't matter. It's not that big a deal. But I don't want my coffee to get any paint in it. That would be a big deal. I'll move it over there. Here we go. I'm just going to, a couple of shots of primer. Just kind of do it that way. Not much. I'm not going to go crazy with it. And then when I'm done, after that dries, I'm going to go ahead and spray it with some shiny gloss black. Alright, we are ready to go ahead and give it our black paint. I'm doing it this way because I just don't want to be taking that transformer off there just to paint it, you know. Doesn't make much sense. It'll take 2 or 3 shots of this drying in between, and when we're done there may be areas that, you know, we really didn't get, but we're going to try our best. Just keep at it. I'll tell you what, while that paint's drying, let's go back to the cabinet for a minute. This is the connector, the socket that holds our fluorescent light on the top, and there's another set down below I've got off right now. See that paper gasket right there? They've about had the lick. So I'm going to remove the socket, and I've made new gaskets for it. This time I made them out of that plastic that I use a lot. I just took an old one that had broken and fallen apart. I used it as my pattern to make the new ones, and we will just go ahead and set that up there just like that behind there, and it'll take the place of that one. Let's get it in there, see what it looks like. Well, that's what they're going to look like. They look better than the original, I think. And that's what she looks like when she's on. This stuff, this clear plastic stuff really does the job. You can get those large sheets of this now at Hobby Lobby over in the quilting department. It's used for patterns or something like that. I'm not sure, but I heard about it years ago, and I've been buying it ever since. I think it's like a 36-inch long by 24 or something like that, but at least that's what it was years ago. But one sheet of that stuff has lasted me for years. Good stuff. Sure beats this old crumbly crap here which you don't want to trust this stuff to insulate your. Look at that, it just falls apart and bends and crackles. Works better like this. You know, I decided after putting these insulators on that I don't really like the looks of that bracket. It's been clear coated inside and out. I think I better do something about that. I'm not going to, overlook a small detail like that. Let's see what I can do with it. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to do it to both of them. This one over here as well. Well, what do you think? She looks really good, huh? I think so. I'm glad I painted that. This one will go up later because something else has to go in there first. This one I've already got up. Looks fine, lasts a long time. Well, that's it for the underside. This one's still drying. These other two have dried good. Remember, this was not to make them look pretty. This was preventive maintenance in a way to keep them from further rusting. Time to flip this baby over and let's get the top done and wrap this one up so we can move on to the tour mat. Alright, the two top, or the power transformer and the two audio output transformers, they are painted. And what we're going to do is we're going to tape off all of the sockets. And once we get everything taped off to my satisfaction, then we'll go ahead and clear coat this entire thing. It'll be clear coated with satin. Satin, Rust-Oleum, clear coat. And I've got a little bit more rust to remove. I happen to notice right down there, you'll see underneath that switch. And I think there's a little bit more under another switch here somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but oh, right there. Got a little bit right there and a little bit right there. We'll just take those off and just go ahead and touch them up, and then we'll be good to go. We're kind of lucky with this amplifier chassis because we have a lot of sockets right in a row. So a piece of tape all the way across takes care of them all. All I got to do now is cut around them with a X-Acto knife, and that'll take care of it. All we have to do is cover the holes. If we get a little bit of the clear coat on the edge of the plastic here, it doesn't matter. Don't have a heart attack. The idea is to keep the stuff out of the holes, okay? And then we'll tape off everything. I might not even tape off the fuse holder. I might just go ahead and coat that with some clear coat too. It won't hurt it. Won't hurt it a bit. Make the whole job easier. But we will tape off the transistor sockets right here. We have 4 of those. They got to be taped off. I can get this light out of my face so I can see what I'm looking at. We'll get those taped off. We'll tape off this plug and all that other jazz and these switches. You don't want any clear coat down inside those switches and making them hard to move. So we'll tape that off. And that's about it. The job will be fairly easy. We'll just go ahead and clear coat right over the top of this little choke. And we'll, of course, I don't know, I might just go ahead and clear coat that too. Just clear coat the rubber and clear coat the plug. Just leave it where it's at. Yeah, why not? What the heck? Give it a nice light. I'm not going to put 40 pounds of clear coat on this thing. We're just going to do it nice and easy, like a thin layer, maybe 2 thin layers, and that'll be it. We'll be done, and that'll keep it from hopefully rusting for the next 15 years. You never know. 20 years, never know. I just took it out in the garage, gave it a good clear coat after all the masking was off. It's a satin clear coat, and it's not exactly perfect. But I'll tell you what, compared to all the rust we had on it, it's in good shape now. She's in good shape for the shape she's in. You old timers know about that one. Anyway, we're now boiled down to, hey, I could finish it up, call it quits, this is it. We'll just move on to the tour mat, or I can do something about these electrolytic cans. This is a 90, and this is a 40, 30, and a 30. Even though the cans say 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. What they did was they strapped them together, or put them in parallel to get the values that they needed. This one being a 90. And they strapped all 4 of the 20s together, I believe, and so underneath they ran wires from contact and terminal to terminal is what they did. That's how they did it. So I discussed it with Brett, and I said, what do you think we ought to do, old bean? You think we ought to, replace these? And I said, they look pretty good, and, but I'd like to move the project along. He said, don't worry about it. We could fire it up, and later on, the only thing they'll cause is a hum, their filter capacitors. He said, if it causes a hum, we can come back and change them out. Well, you know, I thought about that all night long. Actually, I thought about it until I fell asleep, and then I thought about it again this morning. I got up, I had an email from him. He said, yeah, I gave us more thought, and that's the way we should do it. Well, he'll be very happy to hear that we're not going to do it that way. I dug around in my capacitor stash, and I found all of the capacitors I need to mount underneath. On terminal strips, I got all the terminal strips I need. I have all the capacitors I need. I have all the space under there I need. And I'm retired, so I have all the time I need. Let's just go ahead and do it. Get it over with now. I'll leave these cans right there like that. They'll look fine. They'll look untouched. Everything will be done underneath. And then we can move along with the tour mat. We still have a lot of things we have to get done. The tour mat will be the next chassis up. And but I want to keep trudging along. We can't afford to take a lot of breaks. We've already taken too many breaks over the holidays, actually, because as soon as this project is done, Brendan and I have another project to tend to, and I think you're going to like that also. Until next time, this is John.